With me right now is Captain Alfred from the Rhode Island State Police. We're glad he's here on cybersecurity rather than any other particular reason that he might come in. This is a significant issue. I don't know. I think there's two elements to it. One is businesses don't want to talk about it in general. They're afraid of attracting more hackers and more security issues. When we launched our site in Portland, Oregon, we got hit hard by hackers. We got an element of our site infected. It caused a slew of problems, cost tens of thousands of dollars to clean up, and it's not a lot of fun. So talk about it. How are the state police involved in the issue of cybersecurity?
Well, in 2009, Josh, we recognized the importance of, or the need for cybersecurity and being secure.
Yeah.
So we recognize, if you think back to 2009, not too many people were talking about cybersecurity.
No,
they
not
weren't
at all.
talking about it pretty much at all. So we recognized, along with the EMA, that we needed to do something to start securing our infrastructure, from critical infrastructure down to the smallest business in the state. So we started a program called the Cyber Disruption Team. And basically what the Cyber Disruption Team was us reaching out to the private sector saying, hey, you own 65 to 75% of the critical infrastructure out there, the networks. We need to talk to you. We need to work together because we can't do this alone. You just can't do it alone. So when we did that, we reached out to them. We had people initially. We had a few groups that came forward and said, yeah, we'd be interested mostly at the collegiate level, local government, National Guard, and then we started to get smaller businesses start to kind of trickle in. And basically what we've created now is a group that meets bi-monthly, and we discuss the latest threats that are out there. We put out threats that are there. I also oversee the Rhode Island Fusion Center.
Yeah.
And the Rhode Island Fusion Center, if you don't know what it is, it's basically a clearinghouse of information. It puts information out across the country with information that we're taking in. It can share information with our local businesses to let them know.
And those
latest
are
threats.
attacks that are going on, viruses, hacking strategies that are attacking certain business structures, email phishing, all those types of things.
Right down the line.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes. So and we let them know real time. So if we're getting hit by something, there's a good chance that someone out in California is getting hit. If they're getting hit out there, there's a good chance we're getting hit with it, or it's coming.
You know, it's interesting. We can look at our information of where people are coming through our Google Analytics and some other tools we have, and a lot of news has been made about the presidential election and attacks from Russia. I can tell you right now, when there's 3 or 4 people on our site coming in from the Ukraine, we shut off the Ukraine. When we see 3 or 4 people coming in from a country in the Eastern Europe, we shut off that country because they're not coming to read about the governor's proposal on tax reform. They're not coming in to hear about what Mayor Elorza is doing at the park system. They're coming in, digging around, looking, probing, trying to find ways to come in and get data.
Absolutely true. There are some angles where sometimes people might be on a Tor network that anonymized that are going and coming, the traffic's coming from Ukraine, but
Yeah.
Chances are they don't belong there. They're looking around up to no good.
We've seen a couple, there's been some very, very high profile hacks, Equifax being the most disturbing one. And also on the recently sold Yahoo being sold to Verizon functionally. And the delays in those companies reporting to consumers, their users, their customers, really creates a problem for the investigation and for the individual to protect their data when it takes so long. Do you give any guidance as to how companies should respond when they know that their customers' data has been attacked, potentially, that the security's been breached?
Well, let's first go back to those particular hacks that you mentioned. Yahoo, 2 to 3 billion people's information stolen, gone out there.
And every single one of their user. Every single one. Yeah.
That's correct. You look at Equifax, 2.5 million. That's about 65% of the adult population in this country. So we're talking some big ones. And we can go back to Target, 40 million.
Yeah.
Home Depot, 25
Equifax was
million.
250 million, right?
Did I say
You said 2.5. Yeah,
okay.
just one.
You're right.
Yeah, 250 million.
Right, so just think about how many people have been affected, and we tell people all the time that it's not when, it's here.
Yeah.
You've probably been affected if you haven't, and if you don't know it. Now, get back to your question about notification. Last year, I actually sat on a panel to discuss with the state to make legislation to make our identity fraud statute clearer. So what we did was we came up with a new statute, and by law now, these companies have a certain amount of time to actually notify and to tell people that their data has been taken. And some different elements come in. For example, if the law enforcement agency is investigating, as long as it's not going to, hurt their investigation, you don't have to. You can't notify them. But then, as soon as you can, with 45 days, you're supposed to notify the people.
Yeah. And what is the responsibility of a company that's been breached? In the case of an Equifax, the amount of detail in that breach is significant. It's not just name, address, and phone number. It's Social Security. It's banking numbers, because it's a credit agency. So while Yahoo, you might get your email and maybe a couple of other things. In the case of Equifax, it may be everything, including Social Security, your mother's maiden name, every possible element to it. Is there anything in the state statutory structure that really forces an Equifax to then create some type of protection in the future? Do they have to buy a third-party security system for employee for those who are breached?
So there's nothing in the state law right now. I assume, and we've had this discussion as to whether or not the federal government should step in, and should there should be one policy for the entire country.
Yeah.
I think sooner or later you're going to see that. It hasn't happened yet. If you think about, like you said, Equifax, I mean, their duty is to hold people's data.
Right.
That's their information. I got caught up in the OPM breach as well, and I lost, my name, my kids, my family, where they live, their phone numbers, their dates of birth, and everything. So I mean, it's out there. The data's out there.
Talk about, and I'm sure this is of great concern, that the state's most critical infrastructure, the power grid, the communications grid, kind of all those elements. Is there concern now that we're behind in protecting those assets from both just that hacker, or also third-party agents of potentially terrorism organizations who may go in to look to disrupt and really create some significant chaos?
Well, I think you're always concerned about your critical infrastructures. I think if you take a look right now at Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and what's going on there, and the mass hysteria that's going on there, is because most of their critical infrastructures are down.
Right.
With it being down like that, there's no phones, electricity, all those things that people need and depend on a regular basis. Are we behind? I think we're behind in a lot of things, not just critical infrastructure. I think right across the board. I think there are some countries outside of the United States that have spent more time in the past 10 years getting ahead on cybersecurity. We're a little bit behind on that. I think in the last 3 years, we've spent a lot of money and time and well thought out decisions about what we're going to do with critical infrastructure, in particular the grid. If you look at Ukraine, when they got taken down, was that a preempt for what may happen in some place, maybe in a country such as the United States?
Right.
South America had another similar case going back about 4 years ago as well. So there's always some way that these guys are working to try and get around into these systems. I think the grid has gotten much better than it was, say, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think there's always room for improvement.
And what what are your suggestions? Let's just talk at the consumer level for a moment. What are some things that consumer can do to have a better structure in protecting their information and their data?
Well, I think you look at both a private and your business, or
Yeah.
Both really
Yeah.
come together, because many times people now are taking their business home anyway. They're
Yeah,
working at
absolutely.
night,
Right.
and their laptops and whatever else. So it's just basic things that you've been told 1,000 times about your passwords. Don't use passwords over and over again.
Yeah.
That's always good. Length of passwords, symbols, letters, capital letters, small letters, those are important. And the other thing is, it has to be a cultural change. I think we're starting to see, I'm hoping we're starting to see it now, where people recognize that it's a culture. You can't just expect someone else, that guy that's sitting down in the basement taking care of your IT, have him manage it. It's a responsibility from the CEO right on down to that one person that's sweeping the floors at the end of the night. And once you've done that, I think it makes a big difference. But people haven't gotten to that in their homes for the most part yet, to realize that I have to secure my home because my home is an entranceway into my business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just know your network. If you have a business, know your network, know what to expect, know what it looks like, know how to protect it, make sure you're keeping it patched regularly, not just once in a while, regularly. All those different things are what we call hygiene in cyber.
Those who are attacking are sophisticated. There's a big movement in corporate America in which they look for mergers and acquisitions, and they send emails about transfer of funds via an email address that looks like the email address of the company. But if you're a busy CFO and you get an email from the CEO and he says, and it looks like his name, and it looks like his signature, and it's built, and it says, oh, can you transfer $850,000 to this account? Got to get it done by midnight tonight.
Sure.
Companies are getting hit for tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And it's happened here in Rhode Island to some very significant players. Is it just, it's got to be mindful all the time, and that even though we get faster and faster in our business, digital is so much more of a part of it. You couldn't do business for a day without being able to be connected, but you've got to slow down and take a moment to just use some analysis and some common sense.
You're right, common sense, absolutely, and recognize that these got to be laid out before it happens. So you have to have rules within your company before it actually occurs, because once it occurs and the person sent that money out, it's very difficult. We've had some luck getting the money back, or at least stopping the bank from putting the money out.
But you've seen this happen.
We have. In fact, I had a call this morning from a particular company that called and said that they had what we call a business email compromise, a BEC. And this person hadn't gotten into the email account, but had used an email account that looked much like hers.
Right.
To say, hey, could you send some money? I need to wire this money right away. And my first question to her was, well, were you away from the office for a while? And she said, yeah, I was. And I said, well, did you put something out in your email saying that you were going to be out or that you were going to be away? And she said, yeah, I did. Well, these guys go out on the internet looking for these people, looking for that person, that CEO who happens to be on the website, and their name's on the website, and finds out you checked their email, and they say, automatically told that they're away for the week. And so there we go. We send an email right away. And we've seen some big size companies within the state of Rhode Island that this has happened to, two of them at least, that we were able to get some of the money back.
You're building some partnerships. Let's talk about that before
Sure.
you head out. This is an important part because part of this is just sharing information so folks can understand. And I don't care how big a company you are and how deep your IT infrastructure is or the consulting services. There's always something new, and the more information you can get, the better off you are. We write a lot about this. We publish a lot about it. We make the list of the biggest cybersecurity hacks, all these things, in an effort to try and inform people and to be perfectly honest, to scare them a little bit into being cognizant of it, because I think until you get hit, until you've been hacked, you really don't think it's one of those things, you don't think it's going to happen to you.
Right. Everybody thinks, well, I'm not the Equifax.
Yeah, that's right.
No one's going to want to hit me. Who cares about my data? Well, your data is important because you have probably spent years of making sure that your credit rating is good, so that when you can buy whatever you need to buy throughout your life, and if they get a hold of that, they can destroy that in a matter of a
Well,
moment.
and I also think the very sophisticated hackers aren't necessarily looking to get all the data from you.
No.
They want to get, maybe they think they can get passwords from you. Someplace else they're getting social security numbers. Someplace else they're getting the name.
Of course.
Then they mix all that together, and they may have gotten 10 million different diverse pieces of data, and they end up with only 30,000 that match. Well, 30,000 people where they got name, address, phone number, date of birth,
Right.
social security number, password structures. That's pretty good. That's pretty good hunting for somebody in the Ukraine
It's good money.
to be able to dig into that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly, it is, you're right, it's like putting together a puzzle, and they do it. And there's sites on the dark web that will sell, depending on how much you want to spend, a whole package.
Yeah.
My whole package, who knows if it's out there, I'm sure
Right.
it is somewhere after how many times I've been hit. So yeah, they're selling this stuff, and it's available. And another thing along those same lines is that it's not difficult to be a hacker like it used to be. much of the code is written and it's being sold on the dark web.
Right.
So you can buy a remote access terminal and actually access someone's computer by sending them malware. All you gotta do
Right.
is send a phishing email.
Right.
So it's available to people that don't even know what they're doing.
Right. Talk about the partnerships, though, that you're building together.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we now call ourselves the Joint Cyber Task Force. And like I said, we're meeting bi-monthly. We meet with private companies, everybody from...
And who's at that? Is it a meeting? Is it a roundtable? Who's there?
It's a meeting, usually about 40 to 50 people a month show up. It's usually IT people. I've got CEOs, I've got CFOs. Most of the colleges are involved, who are a big supporter of us, thank God. Government, National Guard is very involved. We also are supporting Cyber Patriot for the Air Force and for the local high schools and middle schools here in the state. It's a group of people that are like-minded and like-thinking that we need to talk and we need to discuss what we're seeing and what's happening. Because like I said, you know, there's no one on an island here. I mean, there's no boundaries as far as going across the country or across the state or across the nation.
I'll give you a suggestion. If you guys videotape it, we'll run it live on Go Local.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Listen, I want to thank Captain Alfred from the Rhode Island State Police. A really critical issue for businesses, large and small, and for those who have been hit or concerned about being hit, the financial implications. It can be a game changer for a small company or even a large company of what the implications are. So suggest you outreach. There's a dedicated portion of the state police website to the task force and the partnership with private businesses, and it's something that you know, CEOs of small businesses, presidents should get involved with and learn more. Can't encourage you enough. I want to thank you for taking the time to come in on Business Monday. Thank our friends at Navigant Credit Union, as always, here at the Broadcast Center, and our friends over at Deep